The term narcotic is conventionally applied to opiates and other CNS depressants. However, the term narcotic has come to be known by the government as any illegal intoxicant. I will use the definition that is more widely accepted in the addiction and recovery culture. Narcotics are hard drugs. Narcotics have the distinction of being impossible to use recreationally or moderately. These drugs, when abused, wreck lives, and that is all they do. Abuse is always progressive and will inevitably overtake someone's life and progress to other harder methods of using to the point of compulsion or addiction. While some, but by no means all, can use non-narcotics like alcohol and pot moderately or recreationally, and even long-term, no one can use narcotics this way without the drug inevitably taking over and having total dominion over that person's life and thinking. I get a lot of arguments on this, but no one has ever won. The idea that someone can frequently or consistently use narcotics like coke, opiates, or meth and not have it develop into a habitual and potentially full-blown addiction is simply not possible. Once again, I chose my words carefully. I said use consistently or frequently. Make no mistake, while it may be entirely possible to sample narcotics without becoming addicted, it is not possible to use them, or anything really, consistently or frequently without developing a habitual or compulsory attachment to them. Consistent and frequent are synonymous terms to habitual and compulsory. This is the nature of the pleasure-pain principle. Narcotics have high rates of tolerance building, so they require substantially more to achieve the same results in short amounts of time. The progressiveness of abuse is rapid and overwhelming. The only variable per drug is how much time, some more, some less, but eventually regular and long-term use will escalate out of control. Not everyone who samples narcotics will become daily users, but even an episodic user will eventually fixate, dwell, fantasize, and ruminate, thinking again and again about narcotics when not using them. If they are capable of being so-called functioning addicts, they will never realize more than 30 to 40% of their true overall potential. It isn't possible to succeed at anything in life without total commitment, sports, career, a college test, health, etc. Since narcotics users' thoughts and commitments are toward drugs, they cannot fully succeed in any other area of life like families and careers. There's no such thing as a functioning addict. There are addicts with jobs and families, but they would be much more higher functioning if drugs were not a pervasive feature of their consciousness. The only thing a functioning addict is truly functioning in is their addiction. Work becomes a means to acquire drugs. Family becomes perceived as a deterrent and eventually an inconvenience to drug use. This is the foundation of addiction. To restate it once again, while it may be possible for those who drink or smoke pot to never develop into full users, 100% of consistent, frequent narcotic abusers will eventually turn full-blown. If it's snortable or injectable, it's dope. This does not mean that it must actually be snorted or injected to qualify as a narcotic. It means that if it has the capability of being snorted and injected, this is a positive indication that it is a narcotic. Narcotics, if injected, not only deliver a faster high, but a substantially more powerful high. It's actually like doing a completely different drug due to its delivery potency. I snorted meth and coke a long while before I shot them. The very first time I injected them, it was like an entirely different drug, not merely more potent or stronger versions of the originals. It was like an entirely different world and experience. If you want a guideline for what drugs to 100% say no to, ask yourself if it is possibly snorted or injected, and if it is, don't use it recreationally in any form. Don't smoke it, eat it, snort it, or shoot it. It isn't just the manner in which you use it that makes it potentially dangerous. It is its nature, properties, and potential. How many heroin users said that at one point in their lives that they would never do heroin? 100% of them. When they first tried an opiate pill or two or first started pot, the idea of heroin was off limits. It's something a new drug user would never do. How many heroin injectors said at one point they would never shoot up? 100%. The first time people move from pill opiates to heroin, they smoke it. They tell themselves it might be all right to try it as long as they never shoot up, which at that moment they say and believe they would never do. And they are totally sincere in that moment. Well, there are an awful lot of IV heroin addicts out there for a group of people who once said they'd never do it. There are a few heroin addicts who smoked but never shoot it, which is not my point. The point is that 100% of IV users said somewhere in their past that they would never do it. What changed their minds? The nature of narcotics addiction, the pleasure-pain principle hard at work. Heroin and other narcotic highs are at the zenith of pleasure feeling. It becomes an overwhelming force, devoid and immune to any and all reasoning. As we enter into the world of narcotics recovery, the rules change a lot, and we need to consider some rather radical, unconventional, and even controversial methods and ideas. When I'm asked what method I use to get someone off of dope, my answer is everything and anything. There are no ideas I won't consider and no limits to what we should try. I take risks here in your solution by telling you not only every known idea, but I put my reputation on the line of fire by endorsing or advocating some unconventional methods that may encourage people to take aim at me. The recovery industry is largely filled with narrow-minded, stubborn, and ignorant people. If they don't like the unconventional, they can go F themselves. I put these methods on paper for you, the suffering and desperate families or addicts. Knowledge is power, and you have the right to know every option. But choose wisely, and if you're not sure or confident about something that seems radical, don't do it. It takes expertise, experience, and instincts to know what works with whom. And if you are unsure, stick to regular formulas. In our first narcotic category, the methods described here are not for everyone, and your average recovery counselor should not suggest them. It takes courage and risk to be involved with these cases, and you may risk your career to help someone. If you lack certainty, stick with what you know.